Welcome to Tales from the Waystone, a King Killer Chronicle reread podcast.
We are your hosts, Will and Phoenix. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Tales from the Waystone, Season 2, Episode 73, The More Things Change, the More They Stay the Same, where we'll be looking at Chapter 147 of The Wise Man's Fear through the lens of Unexpected Reunion.
Alrighty, I gotta admit, we're getting close to the end, so pretty soon this won't be the case. But for now, and for the next few episodes, a little explanation of the pod. Each week we'll be examining a section of the Wise Man's Fear through a chosen lens and figuring out what we can take from the text to apply to our real lives. We'll also take some time to focus on our name most of the week, and then we will share a recommended thing of the week. Finally, we'll wrap things up with 7 words from the book and 7 words from our own lives. And as a disclaimer, we've got like 25 pages left after this. Spoilers. What else can I say? Also, a word to our community, please be kind to yourselves, one another, and the creators of the worlds that we love exploring.
All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. We're just covering one chapter this week, Chapter 147, Debts.
Which is also dense.
It is dense. So this is probably one of the few actual stories that we've got of this term of school for Kvothe. Pretty much everything else has been montage and occasional vignettes.
And this one is dedicated to a period of time where he's not actually at school.
Yeah, he's off playing hooky in Tarbean of all places.
So a while back, I remember having a conversation with you about, can't remember if the excursion to Tarbean was at the end of the Name of the Wind or the Wise Man's Fear. Turns out, end of Wise Man's Fear. I was right in the first place, and then I second-guessed myself. But we get a return to the names of the days a little bit. He hasn't been using that kind of language, like the discussion of what day of the week it is, for a very long time. So it's kind of jarring a little bit to me to just see him talking about reaving and kindling and whatever. It took me a second to remember that that's what that was.
Yeah, most of the past couple chapters have been basically a speed run almost. Before that, he was pretty much out of civilization, or out of the regular Aturan civilization.
But even in the brief interlude where he was back in Severin.
But we don't know that they use the same day system in Severin.
True. I'm just saying that I haven't read these words in a long time and got a little bit meow.
I getcha.
Newfound money means newfound freedom to go on vacation, I guess. He hires a 2-horse fetter cart and is able to just go to Tarbean on a lark, right? Interesting choice, but the fact is that what would have been a hardship for him and unthinkable, the money opened doors, which I find to be the case for real life stuff too, where having more than you strictly need allows you to let go of the constant renting from your present to pay for your future, making yourself miserable now so that you can pass through life without a sustained or terrible hardship in the future.
And I think that also plays a little bit into this idea of debts. Like you talked about mortgaging your present to pay for your future. One of the only reasons he was able to get out of Tarbean was the kindness of strangers, and so he's coming back to repay the debt that he feels he owes to them.
Trappist.
First and foremost, yeah.
The cobbler who gave him new shoes.
And the innkeeper who would let him sleep on his hearth a lot of nights.
And the tailor that he terrorized in order to get clothing that suited him and his desire to get out. He says he has a strange nostalgia for this place. And I gotta say, as much as I would not want to return to places where I dealt with some of the biggest hardships in my life, we did drive past my old house a couple of times when we visited Spokane to visit other people. And I have driven past where I lived when I was a kid, a teenager, where all the memories that are tied into there are sorrow.
I think that's one of the dangerous things about nostalgia. It has a way of sanding off the rougher edges of things. And even for those things that you have negative things attached to, because you're all past it, you're able to kind of say, well, I survived.
Also, there is something to be said about being in a different economical space when you return because you see a city you live in differently based on what you can afford to do in that city.
And knowing that you are visiting as opposed to stuck.
Right. Let's be real here. There are people in economic positions, we were in economic positions in the past, where the amount it would cost, not just monetary, but like everything that it would cost to just pick up and move was prohibitive. You can't.
Yeah, moving is expensive and it's very easy to get trapped. And when you're able to say, "Oh, I'm just going to go back for a weekend," you know that whatever it is temporary and you're able to kind of put it into a box, so to speak.
But I'd also say that there are things that feel different if you're able to afford them, right? Like, if you're not able to leave your home because there's no way that you can afford to go do anything recreational, your world is your house. And the more monetary freedom that you have, the more opportunity you have to get out and explore and experience. Because, like, for real, when I lived in Spokane, my recreational budget was a World of Warcraft account. I really couldn't afford to go out to eat. There's no way I would have been able to go to any shows. Barely got to go to like a movie theater. It really wasn't a whole lot of being able to experience Spokane as a whole. It was kind of Spokane as a whole.
Well, and if you can't go out, you can't form meaningful in-person connections with other people either. And when Kvothe was destitute in Tarbean, he really only had one sort of family group, and that was what he forged with Trappist.
But also Scarpy the storyteller. But he also didn't really form bonds with the children because at that point, every single one of those kids had to be out for themselves.
Yeah. So,
Or they had their own home with their parents pretty much telling them not to associate with the street rats.
yeah. So, one of the things about Travis that I think makes him such a warm and inviting character is he recognizes Kvothe instantly, not because of his reputation, but because of who he is.
He recognized the poor kid that fell down the stairs, sick, feverish, alone, in need. And the fact of the matter is, Trappist cares about people, not about reputation, not his own reputation, not some rich dude's reputation or adventurer's reputation. He cares about making sure people survive, even if he's not able to help them thrive.
And, he instantly welcomes Kvothe back and is happy to have Kvothe help out. And Kvothe is able to, one, share some of his newfound wealth, even though Trappist pointedly says, hey, don't give me too much, honestly. If I spend too much money, the wrong people will take notice, and it's safer for me and the kids here if people aren't looking. He doesn't want to be a target for criminals.
He doesn't want to be a target for tax collectors or for guards.
Right.
He doesn't want his kids to be in danger.
And while he has no qualms about Kvothe helping the other kids, tending after their wounds, getting the medicine as needed, running errands, it takes a little bit of convincing to let Kvothe take care of him.
Thing though is that Trappist can't take care of the kids if he's not being taken care of also. And I think Kvothe did what he could. I would like to imagine that he probably also purchased some food, made sure that there was, clean, probably medical supplies, places to sleep as much as possible. I mean, they are in a damp basement, but
Yeah, I mean, Kvothe says he runs some errands, so he went and got food, and he also got some supplies from the apothecary. And so that probably means he went to get some medications as well as just general medical supplies. I would imagine that that would be included in all of that. And like, I think this is that idea of bringing the blessings that you've received back to your community. Kvothe has received many blessings over his travels. He's learned a lot. So, in addition to all of his newfound wealth, he's learned a lot about caring for people. And so, he is actually bringing all of those things back to people who need it. The other thing that I notice here is Kvothe is trying to do what's best for those children, not what he thinks will make him feel good.
The kids are suspicious. The ones that are not sick or dying aren't going to stand for a stranger in their space. And so he leaves.
Yeah, they don't feel safe. And it's more important that they feel safe than that Kvothe feels good about his good works. So he does the right thing and says his goodbyes, knowing that the help that he gave was enough. So I think that's kind of important.
I do want to touch on him asking himself, had it always been so dirty here? Was this always the way that things were and I just didn't notice? Probably. When you are so stressed, when you are relying on the kindnesses of others, when you are just barely scraping by, it's really easy to ignore smaller hardships because your entire being is full of the bigger ones. And it comes down almost to that idea of the hierarchy of needs, but it's kind of a hierarchy of your attention.
I also think it might be sort of a case where it was so ubiquitous.
It was what he knew.
It's like if you go a long time without showering or bathing or anything, you don't notice your own smell because that's just the baseline status of things. And I think there's some of that where like he was just there for 2 years living in, a city. And cities in the medieval and Renaissance periods and early industrial periods were often dirty. They were often smelly, because you had people doing their business and
Horses and dogs and
they didn't always have enclosed sewers. There weren't always indoor plumbing.
yeah, I mean, to a much lesser extent. I did have a couple of other examples of stuff like this happening. So my person who lived in my house that ostensibly whatever smoked, and I smelled like it. I smelled like secondhand smoke, cigarette smoke. I smelled of it all the time, even if I showered, even if whatever, because it gets in your clothes, it gets stuck to your backpack. There is no way to avoid the smell. And bless all my friends for being my friends still, even though I probably stank to high heaven and probably made their homes not smell great. But also, I had a friend who had a really old senior dog and a very small home, and the dog did not smell great, and it made the entire home smell like that. Then after the dog passed, I went over and it didn't smell like that. But they didn't know because they were used to it. It wasn't something where the smell bugged them because it just was there all the time.
This is also one of those examples of the way that nostalgia oftentimes smooths off those rough edges. Even when you're talking about things that were traumatic and heartbreaking, it oftentimes just boils them down to the raw essence, and all of the other little surrounding things just kind of get smoothed away.
As much as I have feelings and thoughts about this, I think we've mostly covered it, and I would like to get to the levity that exists in this chapter because I think it's very funny, and I think it's mean-spirited in the way that Kvothe can be petty.
Yeah.
But when it's fictional people and one of them has been painted as an absolute twat, yeah.
A little bit of pranksterism is okay.
It's not something I would encourage real people to really do, but I like reading it because it just seems like something that all of the people who get bullied or abused would love to do to their bully or abuser.
We speak, of course, the infamous letter that Kvothe sends to Ambrose here. It reads, "Ambrose, The child is yours. You know it is true, and so do I. I fear my family will disown me. If you do not behave as a gentleman and see to your obligations, I will go to your father and tell him everything. Do not test me in this. I am resolved.
And then he doesn't sign a name. He signs a ornate letter that could be an R or a B, and then he purposefully like drips water on this nice creamy paper that looks expensive or is expensive. It's probably the most expensive paper he's ever had. And he smudges the initial, and then he goes through this whole elaborate thing of making it look like it's traveled.
And then he impersonates some random vintage person who finds another group of vintage travelers and convinces them to buy the letter to take it to Ambrose and Imre.
And I gotta say, I know I've already mentioned this before. I have. The letter, like the mail system, there's no system. The mail, like whatever,
Convention.
sure, convention. It's so just dumb.
Kind of feels like it only works by accident.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the only way. I just it's so bad. This is so terrible. It's all like honor system
Shirt.
and like I don't understand how you get paid for I don't know why it's worth your time. I don't know.
Your guess is as good as mine. I'm also equally mystified, and I think at this point it's as much about, at least as far as Kvothe is concerned, if it gets people spreading rumors about Ambrose,
Yeah.
that's really about all that matters, even if the letter never reaches Ambrose.
Yeah. Oh god. That letter also, as long as it's still somewhat legible, the fallout from that is just what I wouldn't give to be a fly on that wall. And I bet you also both would really like to be a fly on that wall.
Almost certainly. Well, in the meantime, one of the things that Kvothe notes is that while he is instantly recognizable in Imre, everybody knows who he is at this point.
Everyone knows that the stories are about him.
There's a little bit of a longer tail here in Tarbean.
Right. He's able to go incognito and hear the stories. Kvothe really likes to hear all of these stories about himself, even if none of them are the shape of the story that really happened. Quote, really happened. Because again, we are getting the story as told from Kvothe to Chronicler. So while his story sounds more mundane and more plausible, we still don't know that it's accurate or true.
Yeah, Kvothe is an admittedly unreliable narrator who is not above embellishing things if he thinks it makes for a better story. Anyway, he learns here about the time he killed the Black Beast of Traben. He learns that he owns a ring of amber that can force demons to obey him. He can drink all night and never be the worse for it. Locks open at the barest touch of his hand. He has a cloak made out of cobwebs and shadows. He knows a word that would stop arrows dead in the air, and he only bleeds if the knife that cut him was made of raw, untempered iron.
He also learns that he has been dubbed Kvothe the Arcane, which was not a new name apparently.
But it's the first time he's heard it. It's new to him. I think part of that is maybe a difference in audience. Like, arcanists are kind of a dime a dozen in Imre just because of the proximity to the university.
Mm-hmm. Also, Emre doesn't look very fondly toward arcanists.
No, not particularly. Well, I guess they have a different relationship. The arcane is both mundane and also slightly frowned upon. You could call someone the arcane there, and that could be just about anybody, but no one's going to be especially happy with that label.
Or impressed.
So while Kvothe is listening to one of the stories, the door to the end bursts open to reveal a young couple. The woman was young and beautiful, dark-haired and dark-eyed. The man was richly dressed and pale with panic. "I don't know what's the matter," he cried, looking about wildly. "We were just walking, and then she couldn't breathe."
Asthma!
Yeah, that's great, isn't it?
And I don't remember the first time that I listened to this. Not really, because it was probably in 2015, 2016, so almost 10 years ago. And I really don't know if I instantly knew that was Denna, but rereading it now, instantly know that that was Denna. Also, at this point, most of the highlighter in this chapter is going to be green because most of what is said is going to be 7 words. And then, in what seems to be the most flowery way that our unreliable narrator can tell chronicler this story, he starts recounting he made the dude get out of her way. He did all of this, like, very romantic gesture type, saving the poor young girl who was having a hard time breathing. And I am seeing this from a different perspective. I'm seeing, like, if you zoom out a little bit, you've basically got this person who is having an asthma attack being crowded by her escort, who is just like trying to hover and saying, "Help, help, not you, help." Who are you? I asked for help. And Kvothe coming up and kind of getting in her face, kissing her. Like, I don't know. If you don't know the history, it doesn't seem that romantic to me. But if you do know the history, I kind of think that Kvothe was making some of this shit up.
Yeah, I think all of this seems very convenient as a narrative. He says, "I need you to breathe for me."
He laid one hand against her straining chest. This is getting into, like, romance novel territory of language and verbs. Her skin was flushed and hot. Her heart was thrilling like a frightened bird. Okay. I laid my other hand along her face. I looked deeply in her eyes. They were like dark pools. Now, there is a possibility that we haven't really gone down this road, but there is a possibility that Denna is more than what she seems. And if she is a fey creature, if she is a Chandrian, if she is some other entity, some of the more mystical descriptors could lead one to believe, again, not what she seems.
This is a story. There are no coincidences.
This is Patrick Rothfuss. There are no coincidences.
This is Kvothe, the storyteller. There are no coincidences.
I leaned close enough to kiss her. I heard the whisper of a name. It doesn't say he heard the whisper of the name of the wind. It's implied, but he also knows how to name people.
I was thinking this was Denna's name specifically that he heard.
I was wondering.
I think this is her true name, not Denna, which is sort of the name that she's given to Kvothe. I think there's something a little deeper going on there. And as soon as Kvothe whispers this name, Denna resumes breathing.
There was a rush of indrawn air. The room was still enough that I could hear the velvet rush of her second desperate breath, and I relaxed. And then she looks at him and says, "I need you to breathe for me." That's 7 words. By this point, she's recognized that it's Kvothe. Because, I swear to God, if this is how this happened, and some stranger comes up to you and just puts his face that close to your face while you're having an asthma attack, oh my God, no. But if everything happened the way that Kvothe is saying it happened, and she feels comfortable and safe, and she's just like, "Thank you, my friend." Because I still don't know that I get truly romantic feelings from her, because she might just want a friend, damn it.
I think that they're right on that line.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Denna's gentleman friend pretty much leaves before anyone can look for him. So when we hear the two of them speaking, like, Denna refers to him as my Kvothe. Like, there's a possessiveness there that goes beyond just mere friendship.
I would agree with you that there is a potential for a tipping point, but I also think that that just might be a way that Denna is. Like, she's just kind of a flirty person, or is so used to having to be flirty that it's natural. There are a lot of potentials. After this kind of performance, which he does reference as a performance, he's able to hear little snippets of conversation, and people have made the association with the bright red hair and the cloak and the mystical things that he just did, and identify him as Kvothe. And then a lot of them pointedly ignore him and Denna and let them have a privacy of sorts. So they have a little conversation. Denna was like, I should have known that I'd come across you here. You're always in a place I don't expect you. And Kvothe is just like, yeah, I'm just here for a few days. I played hooky. You going back soon? Yeah, tomorrow. Would you like some company? And then Kvothe is like, you must know the answer to that. I always want your company. And not to the same extent, not to the same feelings, but I gotta say that there are some people in my life that I just never get enough of. I have some really close friends, some people that if I didn't have to send them back home, would never send them back home. I would just like to be with them forever. A couple of my former teachers are like this. I've got friends up north that are like this. There's a buddy that we have at the guitar store that if I never had to stop having conversations, it would be like fine. I'd like to spend more time with him as a friend outside of that. It's just a little bit weird when you've met someone through their job. Same thing, to be honest, with your guitar teacher, because he's a cool dude. And we've met his spouse too, and they're a wonderful person. And there are some of my other really close friends that I just would never stop conversing with. And some of them I have text threads that just get full of memes because I just can't stop talking with them. I can't stop the connection with them. And I want that so very much. And to be honest, you're the only person I have a romantic desire with to never let you go, and you never have to leave, and you're good. And I'm glad you're always here, and I'm great. But even before we lived together or were married or any of that, you were a friend that I didn't want to just say goodbye to all the time. You're a person that I wanted to get more time with. And there are people that I just want more time with. So I can definitely see, even if this isn't strictly romantic, which clearly veers that way, but they're so cautious, but they clearly both want to absorb as much of each other as they can.
They're kind of comets in one another's life, so to speak. They're always in orbit around one another, but they're only very rarely close enough to touch. And so it always feels like they have to make the most of the time that they are together, knowing that time and circumstance will inevitably pull them apart again.
And Denna blushed a little and looked away and said, I suppose that I do know the answer to that. And that's when Kvothe spots the braid in her hair.
It's a Yillish knot, just like he's been studying.
It says lovely.
Or at least something close to that, as best he can tell.
Okay, so I've had a theory on this one for a little while. Is Denna a shaper?
Maybe.
Did she tie that in her hair to make other people think that she was lovely? Is it a glamour of some sort?
It definitely is something that hints that Denna's knowledge goes back further than most. She speaks of these knots as things that are something that she has direct firsthand knowledge of, that she's learned a long time ago.
You're supposed to read it by feeling it, she says. And she also immediately undoes it and says, now what do you think? And Kvothe is just like, I don't want to step in it. 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 I don't know what you want me to say. But it doesn't say that Kvothe noticed a difference in her. And I think that might actually be true for Kvothe, but not true from the outside. Because when you're in love with someone, when you're infatuated with somebody, you start having a more favorable opinion of their outward appearance.
Yeah, it's why no matter how disheveled you're feeling, I'll always say you're pretty.
Aww.
I'll always think you're cute. And I'll always say you look good.
I'll always say that you're cute, and I will always tell you when I think you look good in something. But regardless, right? I think that there might be a spell or some form of magic associated with that knot. And I'm wondering if she has done other things like that, if she attracts people in that way with that kind of shaping magic.
It's possible. Like I say, she clearly knows things that most people don't.
I also think that she doesn't want to manipulate Kvothe because she recognizes that Kvothe's friendship and her relationship with him is not predicated on manipulation or lies.
And it's also not something that's bought. As we come to this little exchange of verse that the two share, and Kvothe says he hates poets. She says, I used to hope they'd disregard the book with age. Instead, I found they've merely turned a page. Now, instead of roses, they give gold, and in the giving, they grow sudden bold. To which Kvothe replies, You must forgive these men of mercenary thought, these poor rich men who, seeing that you can't be caught, attempt to buy a thing they know cannot be bought.
I love that. I love that you can read it that way. I didn't actually catch the rhyming scheme. I didn't catch that they played this little poetry game back and forth. Now, to give a little context, it's because after this little exchange of the lovely hair, everything, and Denna undoes it, she goes, but it's embarrassing to have someone know that you wrote the word lovely into your hair. How would you feel if someone saw you wearing a sign that said, I'm dashing and handsome? I'm wondering if Denna feels like he's dashing and handsome.
I mean, we also came of age when there were plenty of young women running around with sweatpants that had juicy written on the butt. So
I don't think that's quite the same.
just saying.
But then talk about, am I keeping you from anything pressing? And she just like, only that squire that I came in with. Well, okay. And then they start talking about the young men that she winds up, or not so young men, that she winds up escorting. And that's where that rhyming scheme comes in. You know, she'd rather have a genuine connection with someone. She'd rather spend time with her friends, with Kvothe specifically, than with these people who pay her way through things because they all expect something from her.
And we see this with the gifts that she gives to Kvothe as well. Like they give one another gifts for the sole purpose of wanting to see the other person smile, wanting to do something that will make the other person happy, not in the hopes that it will result in the other person feeling obligated to be romantically attached to them.
It's genuine affection, it's genuine wanting to see the other one be happy.
I think it's also when we think of quote love languages, a lot of times it feels like someone from the outside looked at the way two people in love behave and then started thinking of it as a transactional thing.
Mm.
And so some people will look at it and say, oh, okay, so this person gave this other person gifts, and so now they're going to have sex. Well, that might be, but it's not because of the gifts.
Or one would hope that it's not because of the gifts.
When we're talking about genuine love, no, it isn't. Like the one person gave the other person a gift and that made the other person very happy. The other person gave the other person a gift, made that person very happy. The two of them formed a bond, and it was not one of obligation because I have paid for this or anything like that. It is, well, now I feel close to you.
So there is a sentence in this that I would like to draw attention to. Gold can make a chain as easily as iron. Still, one can hardly blame a man who hopes to decorate you. In this particular instance, most of the things that Denna receives are not out of love. They are out of an attempt to obligate her to the men who provide it. And she asks, would you have me decorated or indecorous?
That's a leading question right there. One that Kvothe wisely doesn't answer.
I've given some thought to that, I said with a secret smile, knowing that I had her ring tucked safely away in my room at Anchor's. I made a show of looking her over. Sorry, it's kind of gross unless you're actually both being playful. Which she might be, so not as gross. Both have their merits, but gold is not for you. You are too bright for burnishing.
I think what he's trying to say is Denna, by virtue of being who she is, does not need embellishments. To Kvothe, she'll always be beautiful because he knows her, because he appreciates her as a person. At least that's what he's trying to say. Not sure how well he pulls it off.
Denna gripped his arm and squeezed it and gave a fond smile. Oh, my Kvothe, I've missed you. Half the reason I came back to this corner of the world was in the hope of finding you. And then she stood and held her arm out to him and said, come, take me away from all this.
I also would like to remind people that when last they were together, they said some unkind things to each other, and they're going to have to reckon with that.
They are. But for now, it's all cute and flirty fun. For now.
For now. Well, with that, it's time to talk about our Phronimos of the week. Who'd you pick?
Trappist.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy one.
That did not take any thought.
Didn't think it would.
Trappist, who has been taking care of his kids for years, probably decades. Trappist, for all the reasons we've already expressed throughout all of our time reading these books, is such a loving and giving person. Yeah, he also does some self-sacrifice, but he's not sacrificing to the point of telling Kvothe, no, you can't help me at all. I think he recognizes that if he is not available, the kids are all lost.
Yeah, I think Trappist is someone who has found a purpose in his life. And that purpose is the thing that he judges everything in his life based on. Does it help him with his purpose? And I think his purpose is to be a safe harbor for all of these kids on the street in Tarbean, where it can be so inhospitable, so unloving, that they can have a presence in their lives that asks nothing of them, that doesn't force them to do anything or ask anything of them that they don't want to freely do, that doesn't exploit them, that doesn't abuse them, that doesn't manipulate them. Having someone in their lives who just views them as people who are worthy of kindness and respect and love, full stop, regardless of their economic status, regardless of the clothes they're wearing, regardless of whatever health conditions they've got, just pure and unconditional. He sees that purpose, and whenever anyone offers him something, he is thinking of it in terms of, how does this affect my ability to fulfill my purpose? When Kvothe offers him money, he's like, so long as this helps me with my purpose, it's good, but no more than actually helps me with that purpose.
I wish that he were able to take more.
But he also knows the amount that he feels safe taking. He knows that if he does something that attracts attention of authorities or attracts the attention of law enforcement or just other criminal types, his ability to provide for those kids disappears. He won't risk that.
He knows what an appropriate level of risk is. And he just is loving and caring. And that's always going to be a model of practical wisdom for me.
I also think there's something of a namer to him. So when he sees Kvothe for the first time in 2 years, Kvothe, who has grown up probably more than that.
Also has eaten since then.
Right. He's eaten, he's hit puberty, he's at this point mostly adult. He's filled out, he's gotten healthy, he's taking care of himself.
He's gotten out.
Right. And he's dressing nicely. He's bathed, shaved. He's got a nice haircut and everything. Trappist looks at him and instantly recognizes him as the same kid that he used to take care of without even a second thought. Like, he looks past all of those airs and sees the person at the core of it. And I think that for all of Kvothe's posturing, he is still that same kid who was desperate and alone and starving. And for all of the circumstance changes, that core wound is still there.
Absolutely.
He is still desperate for connections. He is still desperate for love. He is still desperate to find his purpose. And I think Trappist is able to see all of that just in an instant. I don't know that there's anything mystical about it, but there is something perceptive about it. So I think you had a good pick.
Thank you very much. And now it's time to talk of a recommended thing of the week.
Yeah, so just this past week, I picked up the new Dragon Age game, Veilguard.
Last week, 2 days ago.
Well, yeah. So far, it's been a lot of fun. I'm not too far in, but so far things are moving at a pretty brisk pace. The characters are classic BioWare. If you're like me, I've been a BioWare fan since the old Neverwinter Nights days. Played Neverwinter Nights. I played Knights of the Old Republic, Mass Effect, Dragon Age stuff. It's all foundational RPG stuff for me.
We also have a friend that's streaming it.
And yeah, they spent I don't know how long on the EULA for it, but
They also spent about an hour picking out all of their stuff for their character creation.
Yes, the character creator is quite extensive, and you can spend as much or as little time in it, I think, and have a pretty good time. I've been really enjoying it so far. I think the thing that really gets me, though, is you pretty quickly establish a sense of who these characters are and an affection for them. They're able to be funny, they're able to be clever, they're able to be witty. Like sometimes they can be just downright silly.
Now, is this something you would recommend for somebody who really hasn't invested in all of BioWare's games, especially like the Dragon Age games? Because I've never played any of them.
So this one does a fairly good job of helping you figure it out. Like it all starts in media res. It picks up following the end of Inquisition. I actually skipped Inquisition. That's the one that I didn't actually get around to, mostly just because I predominantly skipped that console generation.
Mm,
But yeah, like it gives you everything that you need to know. There are some, of course, classic returning characters like Varric, who's been with us since Dragon Age 2, or Morrigan, who's been there since the first one. And so it felt good to get back into Thetis, which, fun story, originally got its name as just an acronym for the Dragon Age setting.
really?
Yeah. That's just what they eventually abbreviated it to in the design documents. And then they're like, that actually kind of works as just a name in its own right. Let's just do that.
I mean, it kind of has shades of Guybrush Threepwood.
A little bit, yeah.
What should we name this character? Well, the artwork is called Guybrush.
Not to be confused with his evil doppelganger, Mancomb Sleepgood. Sorry, Old Monkey Island joke.
Why are you apologizing?
I don't know. Anyway, it's got the character beats that we've come to know and love, and I think that's really what you end up staying for. Think about like Mass Effect, still one of my all-time favorite games. It's as much for the relationships that you form with the other members of your crew as anything else. That the world is all well and good, but it's the people that inhabit your corner of it that really help to bring it to life. The writing is fun, it's funny, be dramatic. Even this early on, there have been a fair number of big swings, and I've really enjoyed it. So, yeah, consider this a tentative recommendation since I don't know how this ends.
That is fair. I think, though, sometimes with games, it's important for the early game to be really engaging and really fun, and less important for the ending to be beloved by everyone.
Very few endings are.
Because also, let's be real, sometimes you're just not going to get to the end of the story.
You're talking about your experience with Skyrim, I see.
Well, not just Skyrim. It is so funny to me that what is it, 13-year-old game is just so ubiquitous still.
Yeah. One thing that I do actually kind of appreciate about Dragon Age compared with Skyrim and its descendants,
What descendants?
well, like Fallout or any of the other like sort of Ubisoft open world type
Bethesda games.
Bethesda games and Ubisoft, like
Fair enough, but I'm just saying.
so open world games always end up kind of stressing me out a little bit actually,
Hmm.
because you end up with this never-ending quest log that just is perpetually filled with things for you to do, and some of them are of consequence, some of them are not, and you just keep grinding through all of these, and it's hard to really figure out which ones are actually going to be worth it.
I like the ones that separate it very much into side quest and main quest and not just quest log.
Yeah. A lot of open world games, though, I feel like oftentimes I'm just getting lost, and not in the good way.
Mm. You're lost.
I'm just lost. I don't have a lot of fun where all I'm doing is just endless traversal.
I gotcha.
Whereas Dragon Age levels are a little more linear. Like you'll have a dungeon that you're going through, and there's a fair amount of stuff to explore within it, but it's pretty easy to figure out where you need to go. Like you don't just spend endless hours wandering in circles. And usually everything is moving you along towards some discovery here or there. And then you've got choices to make along the way, most of them that are character based rather than plot based. Like, what is the right choice for your character to make? It doesn't feel like there's a right answer or a wrong answer. It's for this story that you're telling, what does this character do? How does he or she or they approach it?
I got to admit, I'm really happy with a lot of these newer games having the option for they them pronouns. I love that there are non-binary character options. I love that you can choose a feminine, quote, feminine or masculine, quote, voice for no matter what your outward presentation is. And I love the fact that Erika Ishii is one of the feminine voices.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
I really like them a lot. And it's really nice to hear them from the other room, even if it's like on a stream or something where I get to hear them. It's just, yeah, because our friend did choose their voice as their Rook voice.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So I guess long and short, give it a play. Curious to hear what you think about it. I'll probably be sharing some of my thoughts in our Discord, and I know we've already got some lively players in there.
Yeah.
Happy to chat about it.
That's awesome.
Well, with that, it's time to get to our 7 words. You had the books, and it's a Denna chapter, so you had no shortage of 7 words.
Yeah.
How many highlighters did you go through?
Well, considering that I actually realized that past me went through and actually highlighted a bunch of these things before present me read this chapter again, and I highlighted more, yeah. There's a few in here that are just kind of sweet. You know, you'll be fine, all is well. You need to look in my eyes. I need you to breathe for me. I leaned close enough to kiss her. I heard the whisper of a name. There was a rush of indrawn air. You must know the answer to that. Dinah blushed a little and looked away. Come take me away from all this. But the one that I've chosen is actually not about Denna, or by Denna, towards Denna, or any of that. The one that I've chosen is during the part where Foth is with Trappist. I loved him even more for that. That being remembering Foth as the smudgy, starveling boy who fell down his stairs, fever-sick and crying one winter night. Trappist is probably my favorite character of all of these books, and he doesn't feature very much in it, but the loving and giving and just the care, a lifeline, specifically to destitute children, like, favorite character.
It's a good choice.
Thank you.
Mine is significantly less serious.
Is it now?
Yeah, like I say, I've been on a bit of a Dragon Age kick. And I think my favorite review that's captured the vibe is from Polygon, where someone said, the vibe is, get in, losers, we're going to Mordor. And yeah, I'm here for it.
That's awesome.
It's fun. And I'm a fun person, I swear.
You swears.
I swears.
Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for potting with me.
And thank you for potting with me. And thanks for listening to Tales from the Waystone. Join us next time on Tales from the Waystone as we discuss chapters 148 and 149 of The Wise Man's Fear through the lens of the elephant in the room.
We would like to thank our friend Shawnee Jang for our theme music.
And many thanks to Patrick Rothfuss for creating a world that we've enjoyed exploring.
Audio production, editing, and social media coordination, courtesy of me, Phoenix McCullough.
Writing and project management, courtesy of me, Will McCullough.
If you would like to help support us and have the means to do so, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page, patreon.com/waystonepod. And if you just want to chat at us, join our Discord.
Well, as always, here's to one more day above the roses.
To one more day above the roses.
Ding!
Yes, please expel the frog out of your throat.
Yes. All right. Ready?
No commentary on the frog?
Hello, Kermit the Frog here.
Why'd you eat Kermit?
You said there was a frog in my throat, so I cleared it out.
Is that how you clear a frog out of your throat?
I talk like a frog, yes.
That's the answer.
Yes, that is.
You're weird.
You're just now figuring this out?